Early week edition of College Sports Now. Appreciate you joining us. Roddy Jones from ESPN is in the house. The Doc of Locks, Trip Hurd, also kind enough to join us, even though the lock is not firmly fastened these days.
I'm going to go close the windows over here.
You go close the windows because this is a visual medium for those that are listening on podcast form. We are also streaming. You can watch the show. If you choose to watch the show, we are. This video exists on YouTube. You got to search for the Varsity Network. You can find all the College Sports Now stuff. Roddy, before the show, told me that I looked disheveled. So if you want to see what
No. My exact phrase was, you look like it's crossover season. Like you've got basketball and football going on.
It is November, okay? Basketball has started. For those that don't realize basketball has started, you're fixing to find out tonight when you're waiting around for those playoff rankings to come out.
Yeah, you are.
And you're like, oh, wait, we got to wait until between games.
Yep. And you get an abbreviated release, too.
That I don't hate. Let's get through this. We can knock it out in 90 seconds, frankly. But, yes, we are going to get an abbreviated show in between games of the Champions Classic. Trip, who is playing tonight? I'm assuming Duke is involved. Am I right?
I think Kentucky's involved.
Kentucky? Okay. Do you know who the head coach of Kentucky is, Roddy, without looking it up?
Oh, I know.
Yes.
Let's hear it.
Oh, you want me to say it out loud?
Yeah. Who's the coach?
Mark Pope.
Okay.
That's it.
That was a test. You passed. Congratulations.
Hell yeah.
See, ACC Network, Roddy Jones wouldn't have known that. But ESPN, Roddy Jones, he's all about that life. Speaking of the ACC, you got to go back to your old stomping grounds, one of your old stomping grounds on Saturday. You were at Lane Stadium for Clemson, Virginia Tech. We will unpack everything from the weekend. There is no guest today. We're just all gas, no breaks. We're just talking ball. How was Blacksburg, my man?
It was awesome, man. Blacksburg's. It's hard to get to, which
it's not that hard to get to.
It's hard to get to.
You get in a car, you drive up I-81. You can't miss it.
No, you don't get in a car and drive up I-81. You fly into Roanoke, and then you drive on whatever it is to get over to Blacksburg. And there are easier places to get to. There's places where you can get this. You can take a plane, and it lands in the city that you're in. That you're performing in. You can do that some places. So it's not the easiest place to get to. Although, like, Boulder's not the easiest place to get to either. So, I mean, the place I'm going this week is not the easiest place to get to. So, but it was wonderful. It was beautiful this time of year up in the mountains of Virginia. The people of Blacksburg were awesome. Actually rubbed shoulders, exchanged some forehands and backhands with the good people of Blacksburg a couple times, who were very inviting and welcoming. So it was awesome.
How many times did you win in Blacksburg as a player?
0. I never won. We lost in 2008, 17-14, I believe. And then we lost in 2010 by 4 because David Wilson took a kickoff back with like 2 minutes left in the game. Took a kickoff back for a touchdown.
Tough. There were some special team shenanigans in your game. In fact, that was the bulk of Virginia Tech's offense. Clemson found a way to get it done. However, that was not the main story in the ACC. So we're going to unpack everything from Week 11. I want to start in the Atlantic Coast Conference. As you know, Roddy, you were talking smack to me on Friday night on the text thread. I took in with my own eyes some ACC football.
Historic ACC football. You better couch it the way it is. You took in a historic event in the history of ACC football.
I will tell my grandchildren years from now that I was there and that their parents were there for the first ever ACC win for Cal Berkeley. I seen it. Yeah. I was there. Me and about, 7,000 other people.
2,500 people. Bro,
Roddy's text to me on Friday night on the text thread was, and I quote, "There is no one in Winston-Salem."
Ain't nobody in Winston-Salem. Nobody.
To which I responded, "We out cheer." Okay?
Right.
7,000 included the players.
We here. Oh, yeah. The
7,000 included the players, the coaches, the dogs, the cats, the chickens, the ducks, the elderly people, and twerkers.
Yes, and it was a Wake Forest game, so there were a lot of elderly people, okay, because that's who shows up to Wake Forest athletic events. But nonetheless, Cal got it done. Good for Justin Wilcox and company because those guys had been knocking on the door.
How was the experience, though? Like, you were feet on the floor, like, on the field.
look, you know how look, as somebody who has been to what I like to call big time college football games where there's 90,000 people there, where it is an all weekend long event. Like RVs are showing up on Wednesday, people are in the parking lots on Thursday. We are ready to go for a game that's not going to happen until Saturday night. Winston-Salem is not any of those things for a Wake Forest football game. It is casual. As a parent of 2 boys, I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
So yes, we had a field pass. We went down there early. We were there for the motorcycle. Okay,
That's cool.
we got pictures with the Deke. But the event staff is like, "Hey man, have your boys stand right here." Because this is where they need to be for like the players running out and stuff like that. Look, man, they're into it. They think it's cool. One of the referees walked out and like literally like reached into his pocket and like gave my kid like one of those big commemorative coins that they flip
Oh, that's cool.
for the coin toss. Like
Yep.
literally was like, I'm gonna find the first kid I see and I'm gonna give him this thing. And my
And it
guy
happened
was
to
right
be
there.
you guys.
Yeah, like that was cool. Like that. I'm not saying that doesn't happen at like a game in Austin or a game in Athens or a game, but it doesn't. Not like that, because you're down there having to like deal with like Matthew McConaughey's bodyguard, or you're having to deal with
Manu Ginobili and the Spurs being there.
just stuff, or there's an F1 race in town. We don't have time for kids walking around on the field because it's an
Yep.
F1 weekend, stuff like that. So
Yeah.
it was cool, but we're burying the lead here. How about them jackets?
It was awesome. I was telling you guys before, just a second ago, that there was some controversy going on. Miami had someone sneak into the stadium. Someone who was a Miami fan. Let me not say Miami had someone, although there's some conspiracy theories floating around that there was some relationship between that person and the Miami coaching staff. But Miami had a fan get into the to Georgia Tech practice and record, and then there was a Miami flag that was hoisted on a crane where they're
Was it
doing
the
work.
U? Was it that one?
I don't know. I actually have not seen it.
Because
So
somebody should have gone back up there and flipped it upside down after the game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
they should have. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know what the actual flag was. My assumption is that yes, it was the U, but I don't know. But ultimately, like the fact that you get that win, there's 2 sides to this. One is the Georgia Tech side. Georgia Tech is big game hunted. They have, I believe, they're 6-1 now against AP top 25 teams under Brent Key. Like he is for
That's
whatever
straight up, by the way. That's not like against the spread. That's like straight
wins.
up. Yes.
For whatever reason, Brent Key is one of those coaches that has the right tenor and angle and game plan for these big games. Georgia Tech has just done a great job of it. Secondly, the amazing thing is that they did it with a quarterback that after the 3rd series, you knew could not throw the ball. Haynes King threw a pass. I believe the longest pass he threw was 10 yards, and it was 10 yards sideways. It wasn't down the field. It was 10 yards that way. Behind the line of scrimmage because of that shoulder injury. So they bring in Aaron Philo when they know they're going to have to pass, or they want the threat of the downfield pass. Aaron Philo, who's going to be very good. He's the all-time leader in Georgia history in, I think, passing yards or touchdowns, one of the two. But
High school?
like high school, yeah. Past Trevor Lawrence's record, who
I've heard
passed
of that
Deshaun
guy.
Watson's
Yeah,
record,
I've heard of that guy.
who passed like, somebody else's record, who's all names. So Georgia Tech, and then on the 2nd series, their starting running back goes down, Jamal Haynes, who had 2 carries for like 81 yards,
Yeah.
and then he gets knocked out of the game.
Yeah.
And yet Georgia Tech is still able to get it done. So it's a massive win for Brent Key. So happy for him. So happy for that staff.
Back-to-back bowls, man. Like if you had told me, hey, Georgia Tech's going to go to back-to-back bowl games 2 years ago, I would have said, no, you should probably get drug tested. There's no chance that happens.
And here we are. So they'll be bowling again, and it really feels like this was one of the toughest schedules they could have been dealt.
Sure.
With Notre Dame on the schedule. Florida State obviously didn't end up being what they were, but you miss Clemson for the first time in forever. But you get Notre Dame. You got a Miami team who is really good. And you had to go to Syracuse early in the year. So there were some real pitfalls in the schedule, and Georgia Tech's able to get to a bowl game. On the Miami side, I think the best way to describe what happened is they had one of these coming. The entire game followed their script of Miami football in 2024. The entire game did until Cam Ward fumbled on the final drive. That's the only difference between Georgia Tech, the Georgia Tech game, and the Cal game. It's the only difference between the Georgia Tech game and the Virginia Tech game, although Virginia Tech had the ball at the end of that one. But very similar. It's very similar to the way the Louisville game played out, where they're fighting tooth and nail, going back and forth. They actually were ahead in that game for most of it, and Louisville was kind of clamoring back after that fumble into the end zone, fumble in their own end zone for Louisville that Miami recovered for a touchdown. But close game down the stretch, Cam Ward save us has been that's been the way Miami has operated, and they finally hit a point where Cam Ward couldn't save him. So there you go.
Now, what does this do for the top of the league, right? Like, I know what it does to the standings. Like, I'm looking at the standings, sure, but like, we're coming up on week 2 of the CFP tonight. All right, we're getting rankings. Miami's going to drop from 4 to.
Where do you think they drop? Because this is
11.
fascinating to me.
Trip says 11.
All right,
I was going to say 10. Yeah.
Can you? So with 11, I see. I think that 11, 12, 13 range is interesting. That's I don't disagree with either one of you. But everybody in the top 10, with the exception of Miami, was either off or won a game. Then you look at Boise State, who won, SMU, who won, and Ole Miss, who had one of the biggest wins of the year, who's down at 16. But Texas A&M was off, LSU was off above Ole Miss, so I think those are two natural spots that they would go anyway with a win. And then you factor in the Georgia win, and I think Ole Miss is probably in the top 10. I think Miami's going to be somewhere in that 11, 12, 13 range. Because here, I thought Miami was overrated at 4. But the committee loves an offense and they love a quarterback. They are just enamored with offense and quarterbacks. Ward Manuel essentially said as much in justifying Miami at 4. No one really pushed back because you're talking about them in Texas, and Texas hadn't played that well leading up to the first rankings. Penn State was coming off of a loss. Tennessee's offense doesn't look great, but their defense does. So no one really pushed back that much. But like, Miami's played close game after close game after close game after close game, and I don't understand how that's the number 4 team in the country. Now that that's been exposed, I think they could be in a free fall. So what does it do for the top of the league in terms of college football playoff rankings? I think it doesn't change a ton, to be honest. It changes the scenario of Miami losing in the championship game and still getting in. But ultimately, I think the ACC was going to be a one-bid league unless stuff happened elsewhere. And now I don't think there's enough stuff that can happen elsewhere to make that come true, because a lot of that would hinge on Notre Dame losing, and it doesn't. Like, Notre Dame looks good now.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Yeah,
exactly.
Now there is stuff happening in the Big 12. I mean, you want to
Big 12 is awesome.
Well, it's awesome in that there's a lot going on, but I mean that the Big 12 looks like it is headed towards one bid league status for sure, which may benefit the ACC. Roddy, just saying.
No,
the SEC
that's
too.
not the benefit. No, you need SEC teams to eliminate themselves if you're the ACC. I think the Big 12 getting a second team in, sure it helps the ACC, but I think it was a pipe dream before. The scenario,
a 2-bid Big 12 was
a 2-bid Big 12. The scenario would be BYU losing in the championship game and then them getting 2 teams in. And I don't like. First off, I think BYU's on that Miami train. Like, they got one coming at some point in time.
Pixie dust going on out there. Feels like TCU a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's what I said that the other day.
Did you?
I said that on here like 3 weeks ago.
I'm sorry, Doc.
I'm sorry, Doc.
Dude, I'm sorry. I apologize because you got the stock report.
Don't steal my takes.
I feel like you should have dropped BYU out there in September, and yet here we are. I'm sorry. Let me retract that. Let's purge that from the record. Okay. Didn't want to step on your toes there, Doc. Sorry. But it does feel like BYU's on borrowed time, okay? Like, they are flirting with disaster every week, and yet they're finding ways to win. But
I mean, Iowa State found out what that life is like once the music stops.
Dude, Iowa State, thank you for the memories. It has
right.
been fun.
Thanks for the memories. Thanks for the memories. It tastes like you, even sweeter. Oh. That's a good song. One night and one more time. Thanks for the memories. I didn't really sell out on that. I should have.
I don't know what song that was. I'm sorry. Is that a?
That's Fall Out Boy, right?
It's Fall Out Boy.
Yeah.
Boy.
It's
I mean,
weird.
I just
I'm not
feel like
really a music guy,
generationally,
but I
Roddy,
knew
we're
that.
just in different places. Fallout Boy is not on my iPod, bro. Or if I
It's on mine.
if I still had an iPod.
It's on mine. Dance, dance, heart in the heart of my heart. Dance, 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 the life would blow for me.
Yeah, I'm just not about that life. So sorry, not sorry.
Dance, dance. That was a Guitar Hero song. All right. Anyway,
Forgot you were a gamer. Forgot. I can't get my PlayStation back from the kids. By the way,
dude, I have not picked up my PlayStation controller since the season started, and it was calling me the other day. It was like, hey man, you could just get a little quick 20 in. You could get like college football, EA Sports
you're on that
25.
Elder Scrolls tip.
You
dude.
you could get like 30 minutes of Baldur's Gate in. Like I haven't picked up Baldur in like 4 months. I may have to start a whole new campaign when I start over.
Yeah, you're on the Grizzy though. I mean, it'd be one thing if you're like sitting around the house with nothing to do, but like in
Your
fairness,
boy,
you are
your
on the
boys.
road.
I might have to pick up a new game. Here's the other thing too, dude. Like I hadn't been reading like I always do, like I usually do. I've got this little book that I take on the road with me about Norse mythology, just because it's easy and it's funny and it's fun. It's interesting. Here, I'll show it to you.
Norse mythology. Are you going back to graduate school or something?
No,
Like,
This is who's this book by? Neil Gaiman. It's called Norse Mythology.
dang, man.
And it makes the stories really interesting. Like I just read one. What was this one about? Thor's journey to the land of the giants. That one was interesting. Freya's unusual wedding, where Thor dresses up like Freya to get Mjolnir back, because I think it was a troll took Mjolnir. Anyway, but I found a book that I read a few years ago that I was really into called Founding Brothers. It's about like the founding fathers. It's got a bunch of old white dudes on there. But I started reading the chapter on the duel between Alexander Hamilton and Aaron Burr again. And here's the thing. I started reading it and I ran across a couple of words: isometric and ostentatious. And I was like, yo, Mark would love these words. I'm going to drop these words on Mark during the broadcast at some point this week. So those are my two words. And then I was like, hey, if I keep reading it, maybe I'll get some more words out of it. And then I kind of got back into it. I read this book probably 3 or 4 years ago, and I was like, oh yeah, man, this duel. The duel, Burr and Hamilton. So we'll probably get through that chapter, and then we'll see if we'll go to the dinner. The dinner is about the dinner between Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson, and James Madison, where they decided on where the capital was going to be and how the structure. I think it was the structure of the House and Senate. It was the bank stuff.
So you don't read anymore because what? You're too busy signing autographs on the airplane. You're
No.
talking
We're
through CFP scenarios with
we're
strangers.
we're grinding film. We're grinding film. We are, we're with the kids a lot, dude. Here's the other thing. Sorry, we have derailed on football
It's
for
okay.
just
We'll
a
get
second.
it back on track. I don't mind this.
We're getting a puppy too. There's been
Roddy.
a full onslaught of a campaign, full onslaught for like the
already-
last 3 weeks.
So you already have a dog, or is the older dogs? Are
The
they
Pepper's still around. So we had 2 dogs.
okay?
Stretch passed. Stretch was our dachshund. He had cancer. He passed last December.
Sorry.
Wife, yeah, it was tough, especially on my wife. It was my wife's like her first dog that she had
Still have the
gotten
hound.
like out of college. We still have the coonhound. Pepper's 12 now, 11 or 12.
Okay.
Wow.
We're not moving as fast. Sweet girl,
Sleeps a lot.
sleeps a lot, but like Jackie wants her dog. So it's been like a whole thing where she's been looking at dogs and all this, and I've held the gates. I have been Leonidas standing there in the Battle of Thermopylae against the invading Persians, like the 300. That is me against this onslaught of puppy. Well, I finally lost. Even Leonidas, Leonidas dies in the end. I am Leonidas with the arrows blotting out the sun, just looking up and saying and accepting my fate. And so Jackie's going to pick the puppy up today. So
It's today. All right.
Did you say what kind it was?
Yeah,
it's a dachshund. It's a
Another
dachshund.
dachshund. Okay.
So
Another
we're-
dachshund.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Look, I understand the theory. You get the puppy so the old dog can train the young dog on like
No, there's
how to
no
act.
dude. There's no theory in any of this. There's no theory.
No, that is a real theory. Like they're gonna learn from the older dog who's like, no. There are limitations here. There are rules. Type.
Okay.
Thing. That's how that works.
Okay. Yes. So I
In
wish that was
theory,
part of
that's
our
something.
theory.
Okay.
My theory was I'll deal with the new dog when I have more time,
Well, sure.
but that was not the wife's theory. So we're getting the dog, and it also sort of takes into account that the old dog is a smart dog. Pepper's real sweet. She ain't real smart.
Got it.
So I feel like the theory is going to be Pepper teaches the new dog how to be dumb, just how to do dumb things. just do dumb dog stuff. That's what Pepper does. She runs away. Like you leave the door cracked and Pepper's out of there.
Flight.
She's like,
Yep.
yeah, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Okay. Well,
And she's like, again, she's a 12-year-old, 70-pound dog. So like she is old. She's like 80. I'm getting out of the senior house. That's Pepper.
that's not how she sounds. That's not nice. It's not a nice thing to
And
say
all
about
that,
your
like
dog.
she is so loud because she's a coonhound. So she bays.
Yes,
It's like
sure.
it's not a bark. It's like a brrr. Is how she sounds. So we don't know that she's gone because she just lays around all day. We don't know that she's gone until we hear the bang in the distance. We're like, oh hell, oh hell.
So wait, what type of puppy are we getting?
It's a dachshund.
Okay. From the pound, or are we getting like a?
No, it's from a
boy.
breeder, I think.
See, that's congratulations on the new edition, Roddy. You know, in the old days, we'd be looking at the calendar and we'd say, hey, there's only 3 weeks left of the college football season plus championship weekend. I have not yet wrapped my head around the fact that 2 months from now, Roddy, we're still going to be in college football mode because the national championship is being played on January the 20th.
Yeah.
That's more than 2 months away. That's a long time.
It's a long time.
That's a long time. Like yes, there is 3 weeks left in the regular season. Then there's conference championship weekend. Then the first round of the playoffs start 2 weeks after that.
Well, it's not like it'll slow down for us a little bit between. No, it will. It'll slow down a little bit.
Coaching season, portal. It's gonna keep going. It's.
I mean, I know you're grinding on being portal guy, but like game wise, you're gonna have
big portal
champ
guy.
week, Army Navy, first round, and then like a little break where it's filled with bowl games, and then the New Year's. You got the New Year's run of games. Then you got the quarterfinal games. Or is that the semifinal? When are the quarters? No,
Quarters.
yeah, the quarters are around New Year's,
Yes.
and then the semis are like a week later. So you'll get like a little breather between quarters and semis because there won't be any bowl games left, and then you'll get a little breather like a week and a half between the semis and the championship game. So there's like a little pockets to breathe in there. But you're right, dude. Like it's long, it's a grind, and we're going to feel like we've run through the tape and then look up and it's like, oh, no, we have the most meaningful football to talk about coming up.
Speaking of the most meaningful football, let's talk about the mighty SEC.
Well, we didn't get into the Big 12, really. Because
you can talk about the Big 12. You're a Big 12 guy. I mean, you've done more Colorado games than anybody not named Deion Sanders. So
well,
please.
Colorado now Colorado now controls its own destiny.
Okay.
But the interesting thing is, if Colorado slips, what happens then? Are you aware? What makes you so sure of that?
Because they beat Colorado.
Yeah. Kansas State has 2 losses in conference, as does Arizona State, West Virginia, and Iowa State. Iowa State and Kansas State play each other, but you could have a 4-way tie because Arizona State doesn't play any of those the rest of the way. Arizona State plays BYU. West Virginia doesn't play any of those the rest of the way. Now, West Virginia lost to both Iowa State and Kansas State. And then you've got Colorado, who has they've got Kansas, they've got Utah, and then they've got Oklahoma State. So, like, legitimate scenario that could happen. Colorado slips up in one of those, then you have a 4-way tie at 2 losses for whatever place that is. Now, that would involve Arizona State beating BYU, so BYU would have a loss in
Not
there.
impossible.
Dude, not impossible. BYU got one coming at some point. At least it seems like it. Maybe not.
7-win Arizona State, by the way. So
7-win. Yeah,
some
Kenny
respect
Dillingham. Exactly.
on their name. Yes.
So the Big 12 is similar to the SEC in that you can't definitively say who's going to win. I was looking at this. So I've got BYU Kansas this week. I was looking at the scenarios for BYU.
Oh, is that a
BYU?
Provo?
Yeah, it's in Provo. BYU can't clinch until they can't clinch this week. They could clinch with a win over Arizona State next week and a win this week. That's BYU's clinching scenario. If they lose this game, nobody can clinch until the games are played. Like, you can't clinch until you are done playing games in the regular season. So it's super fascinating.
3-point spread.
That's it?
BYU by 3 at home against Kansas.
Yep, that is accurate.
I mean, that's
Late
the
night,
amount
late
of disrespect. The amount of disrespect that BYU's been
Dude,
getting. in
hold
the
on.
market.
First off, we're not at Rodstra yet, but your boy last week sat here, right here in this very seat with you two, and said, I'm feeling Utah in this holy war. Then there was a pressure campaign by the two of you to have me switch my vote. And I did. I acquiesced. Trips throwing out. Look, Utah doesn't cover. BYU does.
Well, Utah hasn't had a pulse.
Utah hasn't had a pulse.
Yeah.
You know what wakes up your pulse?
Yeah. BYU,
Holiness.
Holy war.
Holiness.
Listen,
Should've
I don't
stuck with my
know
guns.
if Rodstra
have.
follows the doc of locks on Twitter, but like, you should probably fade the lock doctor. Okay, my man is going through something right now. All right, like, he just is. By the way, I'm looking at the forecast. Have you looked at the forecast for this weekend in Provo?
No. Look at the forecast. What's the forecast?
35.
It's gonna be very cold.
Hmm.
Friday high of 52, low of 31. Showers.
No.
Saturday, yes. Saturday, high of 39. There is snow accumulations in the forecast, less than 1 inch. That's nothing. That's nothing. But you're still going to be out of your element, Atlanta guy. And then Saturday night, a low of 23, cloudy, winds light and variable. That's. I mean, it's an open air press box, Roddy. Like, you might need to go to REI, man. Get you some long johns. You might need to figure this out. Like,
That's
what's
summertime
the plan?
for those people.
What's the plan here?
I've done cold games in the past, and I've been on the sideline for cold games in the past. So your boy's stocked
Which is worse than being in the booth because you're
stocked with
exposed.
warm gear. I will be fine.
Gloves, right?
The
Scarf?
issue, yeah, gloves. There will be a scarf that's packed now. Yes, there will be a toboggan, or I like to go with.
You lose the heat from your hair, from your head.
Yeah, so usually what I end up doing is putting like some sort of toboggan on, and then my headphones over my ears, so my ears are covered, but the toboggan has the rest of the head. We'll be fine from that perspective. The thing is, it makes packing really hard. So we'll have to figure that out. I'll probably have to wear my jacket onto the plane, which is not ideal, but it's all right. Or I've got this like sort of warm, puffy jacket. It's not that puffy, but it can be smushed very easily. It just doesn't look as good. So do I want fashion or function? Well, the fashionable one is also functional, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
What's the over-under in that game, Doc? Just while we're just, I know Rodstra's coming a little bit later in the show.
Let's see,
Because
55.5.
Kansas might get there on their own. I mean, Kansas offense was just carving.
Dude, have you
up
seen
Iowa
BYU on
State.
defense? Have you seen BYU on defense?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, BYU's good on defense. They're good.
Okay.
The thing is, the interesting thing is about this game, and we were talking to our crew about it yesterday. These are two teams that are basically the inverses of each other. So you look at Kansas's schedule. 6-point loss to Illinois, 3-point loss to UNLV, 4-point loss to West Virginia, 11-point loss to TCU, 4-point loss to Arizona State, 2-point loss to Kansas State. Look at BYU, 3-point win over SMU. What is this? A 6-point win over Baylor, a 3-point win over Oklahoma State, a 7-point win. No, that's a 13-point win over UCF, and a 1-point win over Utah. Like, they win their close games. Kansas loses them. Kansas is a lot closer than I think people realize, and that win last week, and even the Kansas State game, like those two games kind of show like Kansas got a little something to them. They got a little something. So
It was just nice to see that offense because Devin Neal, Jalen Daniels, those guys they haven't been as explosive. The turnover bug has really bit Kansas this year.
Not
on Saturday.
Not recently. Like, that turnover thing was really early. They turn the ball over a ton in the non-conference in those games that I mentioned earlier. Illinois, UNLV, they turn the ball over a lot. They've kind of stopped, but there was something just still off, and now they're starting to get some wins. But they've sort of cured the turnover thing in the last month and a half or so.
What happened to Iowa State?
I mean, you started picking them, and they started losing. I mean,
Apparently.
Yeah.
it's tough. It's tough.
I think there was a mirage created at the top of the Big 12 that there was a real separation between teams, just because Iowa State was winning close games, like they were winning games that they probably shouldn't have. The Texas Tech game, they lost that game. The West Virginia game sort of stands out as one of those where it was back and forth. The Iowa game stands out as one of those where it was like, I don't know. The UCF game stands out. And so I think this is regression to the mean. Like Iowa State very well might win out. Like Cincinnati's going to be tough, and Kansas State's tough at the end of the year.
Don't talk to the doc about Cincinnati. Don't bring
Oh, what happened with Cincinnati?
Oh, we'll talk about it.
He made people pull their car over to the side of the road.
I did hear that. I was listening to that, and you said stop what you're doing, pull your car over to the side of the road.
That was on this show, right?
Wherever you are. Oh,
yeah.
That's why I heard it.
Yeah. He encouraged.
I couldn't remember if I was listening.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
It was reckless. It was a little reckless.
It was not reckless at all.
I mean, they ended up losing straight up, so it feels a little reckless.
Straight up at home to the Nears. Where's BYU going to be ranked tonight? They were 9 last week.
I tend to think BYU is kind of at their ceiling.
Yeah, I agree.
So they could bump up to 8, but that is like a hard cap until carnage happens ahead of them.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Big 12, while it is fascinating, that's a one-bid league. Like, even if BYU were to lose, the 12-0 BYU loses in Dallas or Arlington, wherever.
No, they're getting in then. They're getting in.
Think so?
Yeah. So let's play this scenario out, okay? Oregon, Ohio State are still going to be 1-2. Georgia's still going to be up there.
Georgia's
Texas
not going to be up there. Georgia's going to be like
Georgia
9,
lost. Sorry.
10.
I don't know if they'll be that low.
Dude, they got blown out.
Yeah, on the road at Ole Miss, but like I feel like they've got a hard. Although Alabama could jump Georgia because Georgia, obviously, Alabama's got the head-to-head.
Probably
wouldn't hate it. Wouldn't hate it.
So how high does Alabama go? Yeah, it's a good point. But I think if you have a BYU team that's at like 7 going into championship week, they would have to drop 4 spots probably to get left out of a college football playoff. That's not going to
think about the brands that are going to be hold on,
Roddy. That would be the committee punishing a team for playing in a championship game if you lose that game. If they were to lose and go from 7 to 11, unless you have 3 or 4 conference champions that jump them, which isn't going to happen, then you'd be punishing BYU for playing in the championship game. I don't think the committee is going to be in the business of doing that, of having a team that did not play jump a team that lost in a champ game. I don't think that's going to happen.
Georgia last year?
All those teams played. Georgia got jumped by Alabama, who won, Texas, who won, and they obviously Georgia beat Alabama, Michigan, who won, and Florida State, who won. So those are all the people that jumped Georgia, and then Georgia fell. So that's the scenario that I think BYU will avoid because there's not enough teams below them playing in conference championship games that could win to jump them. Now, could you get like a Boise jump them? Yeah, you could. That could happen. But other than that, maybe the winner of the Big 12 championship game jumps them. That's 2 spots. But the Big 10 championship game is playing above them. The SEC championship game is above them. And potentially you could get the winner of the ACC. So let's say SMU is at 10 and BYU is at 7 and SMU beats Miami, wherever Miami is. Hell, Miami may be below them. You could get the ACC champ jump them. So like maximum 3 spots. But if you're at 7 and you drop, you get jumped by 3 teams, that's 7, 8, 9. So you're at 10, you're still getting in the college football playoff.
It's crazy though, right? Because we're talking through these scenarios, which I'm cool with. I mean, there's 3 weeks left in the regular season, but there are other leagues like the SEC and Big Ten where, we're talking about teams that are not playing in their conference championship games who are going to be
Locks.
to make the field.
Locks, yeah.
Like Indiana,
Locks.
for example.
Yep.
So it's fascinating.
Yeah. And go ahead, Trip.
I was going to say, before you leave the Big 12, could you make the argument right now? Every Big 12 team on a neutral field, Colorado's favored over any of them?
I would favor Colorado over everybody. Yeah, I would.
I think so too.
Yep. And look, the game that they played over the weekend against Texas Tech was close at half, but the thing about Colorado is they just come at you in waves of athleticism and great quarterback play. They've got the best quarterback in the league, and you can Rocco Becht me, you can Jake Retzloff me, you can Jalen Daniels
Rocco
me.
Becht me all night long, baby.
Hey, look, yeah, I want to Rocco Becht all night long and party every day. But Shedeur Sanders is by far the best quarterback in that league, and I don't think it's particularly close. Travis Hunter is by far the best player in that league, and I don't think it's particularly close. And then you can go down, well, how much better are this team's defensive line and offensive lines than Colorado? And that gap has gotten small enough where the athleticism can overcome it. So, and they believe now. They really believe. They're well coached. They believe. They're physical. They're as physical a team as you'll see. So.
I was impressed with the game.
This week.
I was impressed with the game in Lubbock, man. What'd they spot? Texas Tech 13, 10,
yep.
whatever
Something
it
like
was, beginning of the year or beginning of the game, and then it was just good night. We're done.
Night.
Get into another gear. Yeah, it's pretty impressive stuff. So
we'll
see. Colorado hosts Utah on Saturday in Boulder.
Big noon. They have complained. They have complained about the 8:15 p.m. local kicks. Now you get a 10 a.m. local kick.
Why would you complain about an 8:15 p.m. local kick?
Because you got to sit around all day.
Okay, but
why are we playing so late?
You want to play at 10 a.m.?
Well, they're playing at 10 a.m.
That's what I'm saying.
And they're gonna do it again. They're a 10 a.m. local kick the day after Thanksgiving.
Ooh, man, I don't know about you, but the day after Thanksgiving at 10 a.m. local time, your boy is. I mean, I'm just full. I'm just bloated. It's not
and
just
those
food.
people in Colorado are going to be bloated and baked.
Yeah, well,
baked.
Sure. I mean, you gotta. It's the best way to cure a hangover.
Sails
allegedly.
through the
I've been
roof.
Told. I don't know from experience. I've been told just because it gets the appetite going again. Anyway, let's talk SEC.
Yeah.
Ole Miss beat the life out of Georgia. I know that look, they had an early touchdown courtesy of a Jackson Dart pick, but after that, man, Georgia's offense once again just goes into
a problem.
Shell. It is a problem. And it's not just like a Carson Beck issue. Like, they can't run the ball.
No.
Like, the ETN transfer, like, just I don't know what's more impressive, frankly. Or I guess the storyline for me coming out of Oxford. Was it Ole Miss finally getting it done against a team that they're an underdog against and, the punching up and all that stuff? Is it that, or is it the fact that, like, we still keep expecting Georgia to, like, flip some sort of a switch that, like, Roddy, I don't think they have. I just don't think they have the ability.
Well, we saw it in the second half of the Alabama game. So we can't say they don't have it.
But they had to, because they were trailing 28-0. Like, they had to throw everything out and just let Carson Beck just pass their way back into that game. And it happened.
Yeah.
Man, I've moved on from the Alabama game. Like, neither one of those teams is what we saw in that game. Alabama's not
100%.
that good. Georgia's not that bad. And it's just you got to throw it away. But I don't know where you go from here if you're Georgia, man. I know you're favored against Tennessee, and yes, you got to have it. But, like, we talked about Georgia's a national – and that's the thing, big picture. Yes, there's playoff teams. Is Georgia a national championship contender, Roddy? I don't know, man. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think so. Look, the fact that the Big Ten is so top heavy has sort of, I think, tilted things in those teams'
with
favor.
National championship contenders. Yes.
Yeah, right. But we've seen Oregon and Ohio State play each other, but we hadn't really seen them play anybody else. So what comparisons do we have there? At least in the SEC, you have teams with comparable talent. Look, Ole Miss going on the road to Ole Miss is like going on the road to Ohio State or Oregon, in my opinion, because talent-wise, Ole Miss is every bit as good. Maybe not as Ohio State because they've got the most talented roster in the country, but it ain't
roster. Yes.
But it ain't far from it. Like, that's the thing, and they got a better quarterback. So Ole Miss, I threw this stat out, sort of tongue in cheek to poo-poo on stats, on some stats, not all stats.
Very
but some
unlike
stats.
you to poo-poo on stats, right?
No, dude. So I just don't talk about the stats that I don't like, but there's plenty of them that I don't like. There's plenty of stats that I can poo-poo on. I just reference the ones that I do like. But in order to get to ones that you do like, you got to go through a ton that you don't like. Game control is a stat that I don't like. The number one team in the country in game control, both last week before the Georgia game and this week now, is Ole Miss. Ole Miss got 2 losses. Explain to me how game control has Ole Miss as the number one team in the country, and they got 2 losses. Well, they didn't trail in the LSU game until the very end, and for most of that Kentucky game was very competitive. Not most of it. The whole game was very competitive, and I believe they were leading for the majority of that game, or at least tied. So Ole Miss is a team that is better than their record. They had not played as a unit, they had not made the necessary plays to get over the top. 2 4th downs against LSU. Garrett Nussmeier is able to convert. The overtime, all that stuff. The bad play at the beginning of their overtime, and then giving up the first play of that overtime, of LSU's overtime. Oregon doesn't have that. Like Oregon and Ohio State don't have the Ole Miss type game on the schedule. You could say it's Penn State, but when you've got to get up for 2 games a year, I would argue that it's not. Georgia has been on the road at Alabama, on the road at Texas, on the road at Ole Miss. They get Tennessee at home. They got them Jackets coming up at the end of the year.
Yeah, they do.
You just look at that schedule, and I don't want to be like, SEC superiority, but it's hard to get up for 5 games a year. It's hard, man. And especially when, like, the other team gets up for you every single week. Now, that is the case for Ohio State. I would assume it's the case for Oregon, although it doesn't feel the same. I would assume it's the case for them too. But when you are only going to be facing similar athletes twice the entire season, I think it distorts how good that team is compared to the team that has to face a group with similar athletes like 5 times, which even Georgia on their schedule this year has a schedule where they face a team with similar type athletes at least 5 times. They played Clemson at the beginning, Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, Tennessee. That doesn't even count a Florida team that's getting better, and a Kentucky team that played them to 1 point, that beat that Ole Miss team that we were just talking about, who, by the way, has some dudes that are going to be top 2-day picks in the NFL draft. Like, I just think that is sort of distorted the national championship contender conversation, because who in the SEC now would you say is a national championship contender based on the criteria that you have that took Georgia out of it?
Texas.
Why, though? Off of last week's performance? Georgia beat the dog crap out of them. The team that you just eliminated from national championship competition went into Austin and beat the brakes off that Texas team that you just said was a national championship contender.
You asked who the national championship.
Riddle me that. Riddle me that, Batman.
So if I'm selling my Georgia stock today, Roddy, you're buying. You want it.
I'm not saying I want it, but I wouldn't sell Georgia stock and I wouldn't buy it. I just hold it. Like, I mean, maybe you offload everything if they lose to Tennessee this weekend at home. I still think they've got a path to get in a college football playoff with 3 losses, 2 of them on the road, 1 of them to a ranked team at home. Like, I think there's a path there. But you like, I think Georgia's the type of team that is always capable of turning it on. And maybe they're a little further from being able to do that now, but I'm not ready to sell Georgia. There's too much talent on that team. You can't sell them.
I just have serious I have worries, concerns, questions. I can't trust this offense, man. Like,
that's fair.
Like,
I think they might lose this week.
This offense put up a field goal in Oxford. That's it.
Look, I'm not pushing back on that. But Ole Miss, you have to also look at the other side of this. Like, Ole Miss has Florida's leading sacker from a year ago is on that team. He's going to be a top 2-day pick, top 3-round pick. Walter Nolan's going to be probably a 1st-round pick. Like, the dude's unbelievable when he turns it on. JJ Pegues is one of the most unique players in the entire country at defensive tackle. Jared Ivey is a really good player who's going to play in the NFL. Like, they have 4 legitimate starter in the NFL caliber defensive lineman. That doesn't even count Suleiman Perkins, who's a sophomore, who starts for him at defensive end. They've got a couple of linebackers. They've got Arkansas's best linebacker from a year ago. Maybe not an NFL guy, but very good. Trey Amos, we talked about him last week, like going to be a first, second round pick at corner. There are some other spots on the defense that they're not quite that talented, but like you have to look at the other side of it too. And how many people are going to be able to give Georgia's offensive line the issues that Ole Miss did with Harold Perkins, with Princely Umanmielen, like those guys, with JJ Pegues, with Jared Ivey. Those guys are really good players against everybody. So, yes, Georgia has offensive issues, but I think they were exacerbated by a couple things. Like, I think this Georgia team is a little bit softer than previous Georgia teams. The rain seemed like bothered them. I don't think they like playing with that quarterback. The quarterback's obviously not playing well. I don't think they like the offense all that much. They're not that explosive. But it's still a unit for Ole Miss defensively that has given a lot of people issues. Like, it's one of the top defenses statistically in the country. Yeah. And so you can't just be like, well, they only scored 3 points. Like, yes, that's bad. But also really good unit on the other side and a really bad performance by Georgia.
I guess, Roddy, I'm just getting to a point now that it's November the 12th where there's going to be a dozen teams that make the CFP, but how many of them are going to have the goods? Like, how many of them are capable of winning 2 games, 3 games in the playoffs?
I think more than you think. Okay. Obviously. Like, I think let's go down the rankings. Oregon certainly can. Ohio State certainly can. I think Texas can. I think Georgia can. I don't trust Tennessee, Indiana, BYU. I think Alabama can. I think Notre Dame can win a game. I think Miami could win a game, maybe.
What about Ole Miss?
I think Ole Miss can win a national championship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that would be the list of teams, 2 of them from the Big Ten and then like 5 from the SEC could absolutely run that gauntlet.
Still don't trust Indiana, huh?
No.
Okay. What's it going to take?
Beating Ohio State.
It's doable.
Is it?
Yeah.
It might be. It might be.
Okay. Explain to me how that's doable for Indiana.
I mean, you said it. Ohio State has played a 1-game season so far.
Yeah.
Like, they have played 1 team with a pulse, and they beat them.
So you're telling me Indiana
2, 1.5, maybe 2. They played at Penn State. They played at Penn State.
And like, look, Nebraska played them tough in the ultimate like sandwich game situation. But you're telling me Indiana with a bunch of James Madison transfers is going to go into Columbus and beat? Stop.
JMU. It's a powerhouse.
A bunch of James Madison transfers and is going to beat the quote most talented roster Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer have ever seen in their lives, with a safety who may go number 1 overall next year in Caleb Downs, a receiver that's going to be the number 1 receiver drafted in 2 years, and then a group of guys this year with a defensive line with JTT and Jack Sawyer, who are both top picks, with Emeka Ibuka, with the offensive line that's talented, not as deep as it wants. James Madison's going to go in. James Madison's going to get beat by 3 touchdowns.
Well, when
I'm sorry, like Indiana's going to get beat by 3 touchdowns.
Look, I just said it's possible, man. People just
anything is possible, but Indiana's going to get whacked.
Indiana's going to go there in 2 weeks and get their doors blown off, man.
I think the one thing that you saw last week with Indiana and Michigan. Say what you want about the season that Michigan has had. Michigan gave Indiana trouble because Michigan's got players. Mm-hmm. The thing is, Ohio State has better players and a lot more of them. So those issues that they had against Michigan, they're going to have against Ohio State. And then they'll have other issues like the forward pass and the ability in the secondary to erase mistakes. Like that, those are issues that Indiana's going to have. So Indiana's been a nice story, stock doc of locks. Like, I don't know how much stock you have in Indiana. Offload all of it next week before they play Ohio State.
Well, unfortunately, I offloaded it way too early a few weeks back, and they just kept winning. But would say if there's something that would scare you about Ohio State, you would think they had to have been as up as they can get 2 weeks ago at Penn State. And even though they won, even though they covered, they didn't look good doing it. And that game could have easily went the other way had Penn State just, turned around and handed the ball to their running back. But
It also
I'm
could
just
have
saying
easily gone the other way if Will Howard doesn't fumble the ball of his own
That's
volition
true.
through the
That's
end
true.
zone. So
Yeah,
there's plays
that's
on
true.
both sides in that game that we can sort of tug at, but that's on the road against a team again with like similar talent in a hostile environment.
Will Howard did look like he was playing for the other team for a little while there.
Happens. I mean, it happens from time to time. Any takes on LSU and Alabama?
Yeah, definitely. Alabama. Jalen Hurts may be the best leader in the country. It's Jalen Hurts. Jalen Milroe, who is like a souped up Jalen Hurts, maybe the best leader in the country. This isn't something that I don't know if everybody picks up on. Do you know what happens when Alabama goes in for halftime? Every week.
He stands at the tunnel.
Stands at the tunnel, high fives everybody. Whether it's the LSU game and he's had a phenomenal first half, or it's what was the game where he was awful in the first half? He was just freaking terrible. And he still did it. Like, he does it every single week. Stands there, high fives everybody. Like, that is incredible leadership. And it hit me in the game that he had the bad first half. God, I can't remember what it was.
Vandy, South Carolina.
It may have been. I can't remember. I can't remember the game. Yeah, I can't remember the game. But it was that game where he was doing it. And I was like, this dude is probably the reason that right now, this guy may be the reason that they are in a game right now. Like, he's been awful. And he stands there and he faces the music with everybody walking. Hey, man, hey, we got this. Come on, good job. Hey, keep it up. All that stuff. Like, and then he goes to LSU, and when he's having the game of his life, he does it too. And obviously, it's easy to do it then. But I just think his leadership it's incredibly undervalued. And the shots that this dude has taken this year, like from the public, he's got a new coach, new system, all that stuff. The sort of the way that we've talked about him his entire career, I could not be rooting harder for that young man. I really couldn't. Like, I just think he is an unbelievable example of leadership and the way that you carry yourself. He understands the gravity of that position, and it feels like he embraces it and he carries himself the right way, the way that you're supposed to. And so I'm happy that he had that game. When they're able to run the ball like that with him, then you're done. It's lights out, because there's always going to be some of the throwing adventures, not necessarily turning the ball over, but like, he's not the most consistent thrower in the country, although he is very good. So you can't let him have it both ways. And if you're going to let him have it anyway, you're going to make the running backs beat you, because I don't think any of those running backs are capable of a 75-yard run. They don't run 4.3s. Jalen Milroe does. So, you would think if you're LSU, you would take that away, but they didn't. Alabama looks like a team that's a national championship contender again. So, and this goes back to my point, like Georgia, Ole Miss, LSU, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas. I think you can, and maybe Tennessee. I think you can all look at all five of them, and one of them might miss the playoff and say, hey, look, this is a national championship contender. And maybe you throw A&M in there if they're able to beat Texas. Like, you would throw them back in that mix. So I think Alabama rounding into form. The offensive line played much better. That offensive line, I feel like, has gotten more physical over the course of the season. They were super physical in that game, like moving bodies incredibly well. And then on the LSU side, like, LSU's going to go 9-3 again in the regular season.
They got to. Well, they keep.
It's not awesome.
They keep starting regular seasons 0-1. I mean,
it's not good.
Doesn't
you can't
help,
do that. It doesn't help.
That does not help.
But then you lose 2 SEC games every single year too. So
I know. It's tough.
How do they fix it? How do you fix that? I don't know.
And
either. Honestly, they're fortunate that they're not worse. Like, Ole Miss was the better team in the LSU Ole Miss game.
They stole one. Yeah,
they stole
that
one.
one. They absolutely did. Do you have any idea who's playing in Atlanta? Like, do you? Because the standings are jacked. I
am tiebreaker scenario guy. Can run you down all the tiebreaker scenarios of who's going to get you there.
Can you educate me on the SEC?
No.
Okay, you can't.
I gave up. The one thing that I read that sort of leads you to some sort of maybe conclusion is, as it stands now, Alabama's conference opponents have the best in-conference record of the teams that are in the running.
Okay.
That's all I know. So, like, if it gets down to conference opponents' win percentage, Alabama seems right now to be in the lead, but that can swing in a week because of the number of conference opponents they have. But you are looking at like the super leagues, and I say super leagues as like the size of the leagues now, have caused us an era now where I think tiebreakers are going to be the way that we decide championship game participants going forward more regularly than not. I think the Big Ten is probably the most insulated from it because its top is so much better than its bottom. But in the SEC, we're going to have this a lot. It's only 8 conference games. So, you know, there's the lack of the odds that head-to-head will not decide it, or the odds that you're going to have multiple teams with, you know, 1 or 2 losses are, I would say, pretty high on a year in, year out basis. And in the ACC, you're getting something similar. So it's funny, in the ACC, this went sort of under noticed, but it's the first time in forever Clemson and Georgia Tech haven't played each other. Well, Georgia Tech just beat Miami, and one of the tiebreakers is record against common opponents because Clemson and Miami don't play each other. Well, in a normal year, Georgia Tech would be a common opponent between Clemson and Miami. But this year, because the ACC expanded to 17 teams, can't keep all the rivalries. Clemson didn't fight to keep Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech didn't fight to keep Clemson. This year, Louisville is the common opponent, and Georgia Tech's not. In a normal year, in a year like we had become accustomed to, where the rivalry of a game that had been played since 1983, every single year, Georgia Tech Clemson would be played. Clemson would have an opportunity with a win over Georgia Tech to essentially neutralize their record against common opponents. Because right now, Miami is undefeated against their common opponents, and Clemson has a loss. But this is the Super League era. We couldn't keep all the rivalries. So now the discrepancy of schedule is going to create these scenarios where, you know, it's going to make some swings. So no, I don't know who's going to be playing in Atlanta. I know that if Tennessee wins out, they'll be there. If Texas A&M wins out, they'll be there. Or if Texas wins out, they'll be there. That's it.
It's a good point, though. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, obviously the SEC only plays 8 conference games, but in this new era of divisionless football and massive leagues, 16 teams, 17 teams, 18 teams, Big Ten plays 9 conference games.
So, hold on.
ACC and Big 12 play 9 conference games.
ACC plays 8. The Big 12 does play 9, but the Big 12 still has a scenario where BYU has yet to play any of the teams that they could be tied with in the standings at the end of the year. Let me say that again. BYU has yet to play any of the teams that they could end up tied with at the end of the year. Well, I guess if they lost all 3 of their games, they can end up tied with with you know, some of the 3 lost teams. Any of the 2 lost teams right now in the league. BYU at the end of the season is going to look up and will not have played Colorado, Iowa State, Kansas State, or West Virginia.
They play Kansas State. BYU.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. Let me back up. They played 1. They played K-State. So right now, BYU is in a scenario where they have missed of the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams. They've missed. They are one of them, and they've missed 4 of the other 5.
That's crazy.
They will play Arizona State. So
Yes.
so then you get in a scenario where they'll have missed, you know, they'll have missed 3 of the other 5. But then you turn around and you look at some other team schedule, like a K-State, for instance. K-State will have played BYU. They'll have played Colorado. They will have gone to West Virginia and beaten West Virginia. And they'll have played Iowa State by the end of the year. And they play Arizona State. So Kansas State's got like the inverse. They've got all of them. All of them. This is the scenario that we've created with these giant conferences where BYU and SMU is similar, like SMU schedule in the ACC is similar, where you miss all the good teams, all of them, other than Louisville, because SMU did beat Louisville. And Pittsburgh, I guess. Maybe I back up on that.
So just real quick, like, what do we think? Like, if I'm putting you in charge of this, Roddy, are we just Do all these leagues need to play 9 conference games? Is that the solution?
I don't
Will
think
that
that's
help?
the solve. That helps. It's not going to happen because of money. Like the SEC was willing to go play 9 conference games, and ESPN said, "Dude, we are not going to give you any more money for 9 conference games because we already have a full plate. We already have a smorgasbord. We have nowhere to put them. So there was no more money involved. And if there's no more money involved, then there's no reason to push the coaches to do it just to figure out tiebreaker scenarios. That's not going to figure out. On another thing, I'm not at all. I would like to actually, Trip, what were you going to say? Because this is a soliloquy that I don't know that I want to go to.
Well, I was just going to say, what if they kind of did some conference realignment to where some of the conferences got smaller and it was more of a regional thing, you know?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Sounds like Sunbelt football to me.
I was joking, like that's what we had, and now we've blown it all up.
Yes. Let's do it. But that's not how. That was not the driving motivation for any. It was all motivated by money, and I don't think the conferences care, to be honest. Like, I don't think Greg Sankey is sitting there like, hey, you know what is number one thing on my plate? Solving our conference championship being decided by tiebreakers.
Because he knows in the long run, it's better for the league that they're going to have 2 or 3 at-larges that feel good about life before the conference that aren't even a part of the conference championship game, right? Like if success is measured in terms of number of playoff teams you're getting, 8 conference games, tiebreaker scenarios, that's not a bad thing for the SEC. Go ahead. I want to hear the soliloquy. Let's go. Fire this up.
Let me find the tweet. So there was a tweet out. Stuart Mandel retweeted it about the number of games that the SEC has had on ABC. SEC on ABC new this year. I said it on ACC radio mostly, like, hey, look, this is a new era where your teams are not going to get the premier viewing windows. Previously, for people that don't know, SEC their number one game every week was on CBS. As part of that agreement, the SEC could not put games, or ESPN could not put SEC games on ABC. Something in the agreement that like it couldn't be over on another network channel. That was part of their agreement with CBS. So the ACC and the Big 12, those home teams, because what game it is decided by the home team. Those games played at ACC or Big 12, or back then it was Big 10, but obviously that's gone. Those were the games that you saw on ABC. Now, when you got an SEC team going to an ACC school or a Big 12 school, which that didn't happen, but going to one of those schools, Alabama, Texas, for instance, like that, then you could put those games on ABC because, again, it was dictated by the home team. That went away with ESPN acquiring that CBS property. So now the SEC games could be on ABC. What has happened as a result of that, and somewhat losing the Big Ten, but what has happened as a result of that, November 16th, and the tweet goes, November 16th and 23rd are confirmed as SEC triple headers on ABC. So SEC game, noon 3:30 night.
Give it to me.
That is 3 straight triple headers, the 9th, 16th, and 23rd of November, and 7 on the season. So we have 14 weeks in the season. Half of those on ABC have been SEC games, all 3. The ACC has had 3 ACC versus ACC games on ABC all year. Those games were Clemson, NC State, Miami, Louisville, and Duke, Miami. And then number of teams involved on ABC, Clemson, Miami, that's 2, NC State, Duke, those are the 4 teams. And then Georgia Tech will get 1. They're an ABC night game against Georgia. Those are the 5 teams that have appeared on ABC this year. And again, those teams get the prime window or the prime viewing. You put one game on ESPN, it gets 2 million viewers. You put the same game on ABC, it gets 5 million viewers. It's just how it works. So basically, the eyeballs, because of the way that scheduling is decided, program is decided, have gone towards SEC schools. The Big 12 has appeared once. One Big 12 team has appeared on ABC all year long. All year long. You've had some other, and that was Oklahoma State against Arkansas. So real, prime property there with Oklahoma State. But then in the Big Ten,
Oklahoma State, the winless in conference Oklahoma State Cowboys. Yes.
Yeah. The American has had as many teams appear on ABC as the Big 12 has, because Navy played Notre Dame. In the Big Ten, the Big Ten schools, Southern Cal and UCLA, have played at SEC schools, so they've been on there as well. It's just interesting that, like, I don't know what the ramifications of this are. Some of this is Florida State not being good.
I don't think it's healthy at all. Roddy.
Well, the eyeballs, the prime viewing windows, the eyeballs are being drawn to two leagues, because on Fox, I don't know what Big Noon, the breakdown of Big Noon is, but I would guess that the breakdown of Big Noon is heavily skewed Big 10, although the Big 12 is on Big Noon this week with Colorado and Utah. But Fox, NBC, CBS, those windows generally go Big 10, and all the ABC windows are going SEC. And so, it's sort of the codification of what we thought with the Super Leagues.
Yes.
Sorry for that long rant.
No. Look, I think, not to go full like tinfoil hat, Wayne Cook Wednesday show mode on you, I don't think it's healthy at all long term. And, Wayne talks about bias all the time. The problem I have with all of this, Roddy, is like ESPN still owns the college football playoff. So, like, the conspiracy theorists out there, when the SEC has a year where they get 5 teams in the playoff, are like I just don't think that's healthy. There's no separation here.
And my question is about, like, this is driven by money.
Sure.
And money is driven by brands, like the ad revenue and all that stuff. So what is ESPN's responsibility to the sport, and what is ESPN's responsibility to the bottom line? Because bottom line wise, this is the right decision to make. Like, Florida, Texas is the right decision to make over whatever you could throw in there from the Boston College Pitt, or who's Boston? Boston College SMU, which is an ESPN game, same time slot. But, like, Florida, Texas is the way to go there. It will get more viewers. But is there a responsibility that we at ESPN should share on, like, hey, look, we have to promote the sport, and the sport is not just the SEC.
Right.
So,
like,
I don't know.
You haven't seen BYU play. Hey, you haven't seen SMU play. Get you some, right?
Well, what the pushback would then be, I think, is, well, they're on ESPN. It's like, yeah, but like, there's a reason that you put those games on ABC. So, it's sort of like the growth of women's basketball. The product has always been awesome. The explosion in growth has been because of exposure.
Right.
Like,
these games aren't buried on Big Ten Network, SEC Network anymore. Correct.
Putting women's hoops on ABC, it helps grow women's hoops. Putting women's volleyball on ABC helps grow women's volleyball.
Yes.
Well, putting SMU, who is a great story, on ABC could help grow SMU, but you have to do it. They have to stay good, and then you have to do it consistently over a long period of time. There has to be an investment, and because college football has brands that are sort of already ready-made, you don't have to invest in Texas. It is a fully matured thing. So,
yes,
that's
well said. I look, it's early. It's year one of this. We still don't have the first 12-team playoff field, but we're getting there, and I think it's a great point. I want to get to the stock report, and then we got Rodstra on our way out the door. So, Trip, buy or sell? Talk to me, big dog. What you got?
All right. Well, look, last week I threw Cincinnati out there because I thought they had an opportunity to kind of jump right into the mix in the Big 12. I told everybody to pull their car over, and I take this stuff seriously. On average, there's 6 million car accidents per year in the U.S., resulting in over 38,000 deaths. And for me to throw something like that out there, I think Brendan Sorsby owes us all an apology. honestly. They're about to go up 14-zip. He throws a pick six. Then I think it was the very next possession he fumbled, which led to another score. And then later in the game, he fumbled again, which they did take it back for a touchdown. And there you go. You lose by 7 when you should have won by 20.
So you want just to be clear, you want the Cincinnati quarterback to apologize, but you're not willing to apologize for making people pull over.
Well, look, I think we all know who this is on.
Right.
I mean, the guy might have been on the take. I don't know. That's the way it looked from my seat in the Blitz studio.
Reckless. Okay. All right. Very good.
I would say sell UCLA. I think
What?
a lot of people are on
What?
UCLA right now. Let's sell UCLA. I think they lose this week, and I think they'll probably lose to USC the week after.
You sure about that?
UCLA might be going
I think they're
bowling,
gonna-
son. They've won 3
I
in a
think
row.
they're going to
hot.
lose. Washington is
Ripe for the
undefeated at
picking.
home. Tough
Oh.
to beat at home.
Okay.
Let's buy
Compelling.
Cal. Cal's an 8-point favorite against Syracuse this week. They've got Stanford, which is a layup the next week. They finish at SMU. Cal, you know what? You really dive into Cal's season.
Yeah.
4-game losing streak.
Yeah.
Absolutely should have beat Florida State. If
Yeah.
not for one play down there, they win in Tallahassee. They
Who else should they have
lost
beat?
the game to Miami.
Yeah. Who else should they have beat?
Missed
Pitt.
a field goal against Pitt at the end.
Yeah.
Won that game, and then somehow found a way to lose the NC State game. They lost
Yeah.
by 1 point. I mean,
Shoulda won that
honestly,
game.
when you talk about woulda, shoulda, coulda, they could honestly be undefeated.
Cal was up 23-10 against NC State going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
Cal should be undefeated in the ACC.
And they finally got that ACC win, like maybe
Historic
the
ACC win
monkeys
that
off their
even
back.
took
And
in.
even though that was a terrible beat for if you were on the Wake side of that. God,
Oh yeah, we don't need to rehash that.
Oof.
Did you see the way that game ended, Roddy?
I did not. No, I let's just say
Cal's
it.
up 3. Final 90 seconds of the game. Mendoza picks up the first down. He's running for the end zone. Goes down. Inbounds.
Wisely.
Wisely. Okay? So Cal's up 3. They're
Put
favored
that
by
thing to bed.
7.5. We're good here, right? No.
Yep.
2 plays later, Cal
Check.
running back's like, nah, I'm going to
Scored.
get mine. I'm going to get mine.
You
Cal
can
wins
go
by 10.
down. I ain't going down.
Cal wins by 10.
there
That's
are
funny.
players betting on sports.
I-
There's
look, that-
absolutely no doubt about
That's
it.
not true.
I don't know
That's
if
that's a
is-
reckless accusation.
I don't know if that is true,
I
but
don't
the
know.
statistically, Trip, you're probably right in that these kids are being influenced. I don't think they have like their own DraftKings or FanDuel accounts, but
Calvin Ridley.
Reckless.
Calvin Ridley
Reckless.
is a professional football player.
Reckless
But-
accusation.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it does happen at the professional.
Yeah, I'm
ranks as
sure he
well.
just picked up gambling when he turned pro. Well,
Go
maybe he
Falcons.
did. Ran
Go
it.
Falcons. And he might have.
He was probably making plenty of money at Alabama before that. So don't
He
tell
might
me
have.
he wasn't.
A lot of
wasn't
reckless,
betting some
reckless
games.
accusations today on the show from the doc. That's okay though, man. He's going through a little bit of a spell. Fade or follow. We ride with the doc, or we follow, or we fade him. One or the other. All right, Rodstra, 5-7 week. Like you
Yes,
said,
should've been
BYU, a couple of near misses out there. Yeah, I mean, you did have Georgia Tech, which was great, but you're 5-7 last week. For the season, you are still pretty far below 500. So
I was also on Cincinnati, Doc, so
yeah,
that
you
was
were.
of my own volition.
But new week, new you. So let's get back on the wagon, man. Let's finish
Yep.
strong. See if we can get this thing up to 500 when it's all
Let's rock
said and
this
done.
mama like a wagon wheel.
Thank you.
We're gonna start on. I think I'm gonna skip the Friday slate. I'm gonna stay away from the Friday
whoa.
slate.
We got football Tuesday night, Wednesday night,
skipping
Thursday
I quit
night.
that. I quit that drug. I quit that drug. Yeah, I
Alright.
quit that drug. Yeah, I quit that drug. So let's start on Saturday. Give me Texas minus the points at Arky.
Okay, it's 13
Why are
and
you
a half.
Why are you sighing that hard?
I'm a big Talon Green fan. He giveth, he taketh, but I ride with Talon. That's my guy.
As the TV voice of the Arkansas Razorbacks, let me tell you, you got to quit that drug. I've seen Talon Green 3 times, and he has not been good any of the times that I've seen him.
You picked the wrong games. I mean,
Well, the last 2 of them have been at home against LSU and Ole Miss, and they have been run out of Fayetteville.
You
They've
missed
been run
the
to
Mississippi
Bentonville.
State game. You missed the first 3 quarters of the game at Oklahoma State. I mean, that man has
Dude,
had his
how
moments.
long ago was that Oklahoma State game?
That was week 2. Give me the over in Texas, Arkansas. I do like that.
Arkansas 6-3 against the spread.
57.5. Look, Sam Pittman is a covering machine, but unfortunately, he needs to
Yeah,
win
let's
more.
not call him a cover machine.
He is. Look it up. Sam Pittman as an underdog is pretty profitable. Texas minus 13.5.
Dude,
That's
it's
a
because
noon
he's an
game.
underdog every week. They've
Just
been
saying.
blasted the last 2 decent teams that they played.
I'm just saying. So don't disparage Sam Pittman's ability. To
I
cover
love
spreads.
Sam Pittman, but he ain't covering that. He ain't doing it.
Okay.
Give me now what's the weather? Because the weather is a factor up there.
59 degrees.
Oh, it'll be a balmy Saturday.
8
Give
mile
me
an hour
Texas.
wind.
Yeah, no doubt. Give me Texas. All right. I'll take Colorado minus the points at 10 a.m. in Boulder.
Colorado's laying 10 against the
Mhm.
Utes.
Mm-hmm.
That Clemson Pitt spread is interesting too. Clemson finds a way to keep things close.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Pitt is unbackable at this point.
Ohio State, look ahead spot there.
Against Northwestern? Yeah, bro. I don't know about that. I don't know how they score. That game is at Wrigley Field, so what would the field look like? That could be interesting. I'm going to skip that. Let's go down to the American.
Okay.
Whoa, look at my hand. Check out my hand. I've been sitting on it. It's like got the indentions of the
Trying to
chair
give
on
yourself
there.
the stranger over there, man. Don't be sitting on your hand. Come on, man. Let's get these picks in.
Stranger danger.
I
You
got a
can't
hard
say-
out in 5 minutes. I probably
can't-
should have
so
said
do
that
I.
at the start of the show.
You should have said that at
Great.
the start of the show. All right, let's roll. Give me Tulane plus the points. Oh, Tulane's a favorite.
Yeah, they're
I'll take
favored by
Navy
6.5.
plus the points. I'll take Navy plus the points. Yeah, I'll
What?
take Navy plus the points. I just like the underdog. I think it's a close game. I like the underdog in there.
All right.
Okay. Navy's at home. I'll take Navy. Let's go Syracuse plus the points at Cal.
Yeah, that's
Goes
too
my
many.
stock
8.5.
doctor.
Too many.
Cal plays close games. So
Yes, they do. Unless you know.
They'll
Unless you're
they'll
getting them-
lose.
Unless you
I
got Wake
guarantee you.
plus 7.5.
Cal
in
loses
which case-
outright.
give me Boston College plus the points at SMU.
17.
That's a lot.
Big
Yeah.
number. It's a big old number. I'll take Florida plus the points against LSU.
Yikes. I can't. I mean, do you know who Florida's got playing quarterback?
DJ Lagway.
Is he back?
I don't know.
You don't know.
Probably. He almost played last week. He should be fine.
Maybe he heard the podcast. Maybe he heard the pep talk you gave him.
Yeah.
He's
Apparently
soft.
he didn't last week.
Soft. No, he didn't. He was soft. He's soft and he didn't play. Although maybe he was hurt enough to need the freaking cart. Why is West Virginia a dog at home?
Because they got the mighty Baylor Bears coming. I don't
Probably-
know. Good
Probably
question.
because they saw
Baylor's
that
been on a
Moresby
run.
was on the take, and if that wouldn't have happened, they would have lost by 20 last week.
Baylor has been on a run.
I'm assuming
That's an
Garrett
interesting
Green is
game.
out again for West Virginia.
Yeah, I don't
Didn't
know
hurt
the
a
answer to
thing.
that. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. Man, that's a tough one. I'll give me West Virginia at home plus the points. West Virginia home dog. I'll take that.
Okay.
Take that. Have you seen the line on the South Carolina Missouri game?
Mm-hmm.
I have.
That's a lot of points that Missouri's getting on the road at South Carolina.
Missouri was an underdog this past weekend against Oklahoma.
I'll take Missouri plus the points.
Right.
That's a lot of points. Although I do think South Carolina's probably the better team.
There's a lot of disrespect for Missouri.
Yeah, a lot of Mizzou disrespect.
Deserved.
I'll take Arizona State plus the points on the road in the Little Apple.
Arizona State catching 9.5. Okay.
I'll take Oregon minus the points on the road at Wisconsin.
What is that line?
14 and a half.
14 and a half.
Ooh. Okay.
Give me Georgia minus the points at home against Tennessee. Why are you shaking your head? Stock
Oppo.
of Lock Doc.
Oppo.
What was the bet that we had on the Kava Bowl, Steven? I think I won that, didn't I?
I wrote it down and I erased it, so that probably didn't go my way. I'll have to dig that back up. Thank you for the reminder. I'll dig around in the archive for that.
You're welcome.
Please.
And then I'll take North Carolina minus the points. Welcome in, wake 'em up, Forest.
No respect for the Deeks.
North Carolina sneakily has been playing better.
Stop.
They have.
Stop.
Yeah.
They have. Sneaky been playing better.
Against who?
Which,
Virginia?
Florida State will make
Florida
you look
State and Virginia,
Well,
but Virginia's kind of a little bit of a spoiler now, beating Pitt over the weekend. So let's not act like they've just had Mary School
Florida
of the
State's
blind
coming
and
to
dark.
town. Does Florida State play this weekend? No. Okay. I
No.
was going to say.
They
We gotta
fired
get
everybody
ready.
and had to take.
That's another
I know.
lock.
We got a bye week. Get healthy for Charleston Southern, baby.
Yeah.
Don't need it.
Florida
Don't
State,
need it.
probably a 3-point underdog against the Bucks of
I'll
Charleston.
also take Memphis minus the points against Trent Diffler's UAB.
Yeah, tough loss for UAB over the weekend, giving up 20 fourth quarter points to UAB.
Not good,
whatever it
they
was.
were-
But
Yeah.
Karma's you know what.
All right. BYU, Kansas. Got to make a pick.
I'm not
Memphis
making a pick.
minus 14. Okay. Anything else for Rodstra this
I
week?
can't make a pick on BYU Kansas. What would you pick? Lock of stock.
Well, I
docs?
thought you were talking earlier about this game. I thought you did like.
I'm doing the
Trying
game,
to
so
go
I
back
can't.
through.
I can't
Working
pick
the
it.
game
Oh,
on
okay,
television.
okay.
You just,
Gotcha.
Yeah, you gotta. It's tough.
1,
Stuff.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. This is a 12-0 week. 12-1 week, I think.
Okay.
I'm feeling it.
Well, come back on Friday for me and Trips picks. He continues to trail me in the standings.
Can you guys get that out early? Like I'm going to be on Mountain Time, so let's just like get that thing out like maybe
That thing
10
usually
a.m.
comes-
Mountain
I can't-
Time.
We start taping at 9 Eastern.
Like
that
10
thing will
a.m.
be
Mountain
out by
Time.
11 a.m. Eastern time. That's the best I can do. Okay,
I mean,
11
you know,
a.m. Eastern. That's 9 a.m. Mountain.
it's like around where my meetings start, so sometimes I miss it. Like I got stuff to
Okay.
do in the morning. I'm looking for something to listen to, and I'm always refreshing my feed for Felder Fridays.
I'll text you my picks on the side. Okay, if that's what you want.
I
you
doubt
just
that's
want
why he
Felder's
needs it.
analysis. Got it. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right. Folks, thank you for listening to the show. For Roddy, for the doc, I'm Hartzell. We're back on Wednesday with Wayne and Phil Steele. Always a good time. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll talk to you soon.